Hello, everyone, and welcome to the course of world history. I'm your host, Mr. Samuelson, and today we are talking about Yuan China, that is, the Yuan Dynasty period in China. Our essential question for the day is, how did the Yuan Dynasty gain power in China, and then how did they lose that power? So let's go back to the Mongols. So when Genghis Khan dies, his third son, Ogadai, becomes the Great Khan. Now, Ogadai is then followed. After Ogadai, the next great Khan was his son, Guyuk, and Guyuk's cousin, Munk. Now, Munk's brother and Genghis Khan's grandson was Kublai. And he is, depending on how you want to count your Mongol emperors, either the fourth or fifth great Khan in this empire. But he's really kind of like the third one that's really important. Now, the Khans in China. Genghis Khan first defeated the Jin and Tangut empires in northern China. So this was part of Genghis Khan's initial expansion of the Mongol Empire. He kind of takes care of most of the, taking care of about half of the Chinese. Now, Ogadai later completes the conquest of those empires and solidifies Mongol control over northern China. Munk Khan is going to invade the Song Dynasty, the southern part of China down here, but he's going to die early in that conflict, so he will be unsuccessful in taking over the whole of China. Now, following the death of Munk in 1259, there is a conflict. The Mongols cannot agree on who should be the next great Khan and leader of the entire Mongol people. And for 2 years, there winds up being kind of two rival Khans. One is in Mongolia, and the other is Kublai, who at that time is based in China. Now, after 4 years of fighting, Kublai does gain the upper hand, and he is named the Great Khan. But his direct rule over the Mongol territory is very limited by this time. And he winds up in control only of Mongolia and China and some parts of Eastern Russia, while the others take this opportunity to establish more firm rule in other areas of the empire. So we wind up having the Golden Horde, the Chagadai Khanate, and the Il Khanate establishing their self-rule because Kublai was unable to focus on controlling the entire empire and instead just had to focus on controlling his areas. Now, Kublai realized that out of Mongolia and China, his real power base was in China, not in Mongolia. So he moves the entire Mongol government to China, where there's more wealth and more people, more resources available to him. And as a leader of China, Kublai wanted to rule all of China. He wanted to be accepted and known as the ruler of China, which means you kind of have to get rid of the remaining Chinese dynasty, the Song Dynasty in the south. Now, in order to gain acceptance of the Chinese and the backing of the Chinese people, Kublai establishes a Chinese dynasty in 1271 called the Yuan Dynasty, taking kind of this Chinese cultural step to be more accepted as a Chinese ruler. Everybody knows he's a Mongol. He acts Mongol in important ways, but he also acts Chinese in important ways. And he does this in order to create stable rule and stable government in the north. And once he has stabilized the north, then he can go ahead and lead his great Khanate, this is Kublai's territory, in their war of conquest against the Song. Now, in the Yuan invasion of South China, they succeed in overthrowing the Song dynasty. It's not an immediate thing. They hold on for a while. But by 1279, the Song dynasty has been defeated, and all of China and Mongolia is united under Kublai's rule. That is under this Yuan dynasty, this Mongol rule. So Kublai Khan finds himself the emperor of China. This is after that 1279 defeat of the Song. Now, his goal was to create this strong Chinese empire. It would have Chinese culture, Chinese flavor, Chinese language, but it would all be under the rule of the Mongols. So the Mongols would be that upper layer of control, of rule, over a definitely Chinese empire. And it is his acceptance of this Chinese culture that allow the Chinese in turn to accept him and not feel like they have to rebel against this barbarian Mongol. Now, Kublai winds up being succeeded by his grandson, and then 8 other members of Kublai's family will eventually be the emperor, the ruler of the Yuan Dynasty in China. Now, some of them wind up being okay rulers, but none of them were able to get this balance right, to be both Mongol and Chinese and have their rule accepted. Some Yuan rulers tried to be more Mongol and establish their authority outside of China, right? If you want the other Khanates to accept you, you have to definitely be a Mongol, or they're not going to accept your rule. But in order to have a good, firm control of China, you have to be Chinese, or the Chinese people will rebel against your leadership. Kublai was able to kind of balance both. None of his successors were able to do that balance, and wound up always in friction between the two groups. Now, as this friction led to increasingly weak rule, they do have to kind of eventually give up the ghost and just rule as Chinese. And it's as they're making this acceptance, as they're making this transition, that China goes into one really bad year in particular, following a series of bad years. These are droughts, floods, and the famines that will come with droughts and floods. China's in rough shape, and they're not used to being in rough shape. And the Yuan leadership is supposed to step up and help the Chinese people out, but their response really is ineffective. And a group of Chinese will take advantage of this. We wind up having the Red Turban Rebellion. In 1351, this rebellion, the Red Turban Rebellion, begins, and it will spread quickly, right? A China for Chinese. Now, the effort to suppress the rebellion was difficult for the Yuans. It was popping up all over the place. So their response was to give individual local leaders more power and more autonomy to handle the rebellion in any way that they can. They give these power to local warlords. But of course, that decentralizes power. And it takes more of the power away from the emperor. And the Chinese are now getting more and more used to kind of governing themselves. And out of this rebellion in 1356 comes, all right, Zhu Wanzhang. Sorry, I totally butchered that. But Zhu Wanzhang, a leader within the Red Turban Rebellion. And he will capture the Yuan capital, southern capital of Nanjing, one of the most important cities within China. Zhu later established the Ming Dynasty and will eventually reunite China. It's not an immediate thing, right? 1356 all the way to 1381 before they can get the Mongols completely out of China. But the Ming will manage to do it. More on the Ming another day. That's it for today. I hope you learned something, and farewell.